Hi, we're talking about Wings today. If you were a 70s kid, you may not have known much about the Beatles yet, but you knew a lot about Wings. They were all over the radio, and that was Paul McCartney's new band with his wife, Linda. So they kicked off in 72. I want to remind you to all go to my shop at downpeppertreelane.com, like, subscribe, Patreon, and support my store over there. I am really looking for a few people to step forward and give me that support and love to keep this all rolling. So in 72, the first single is called Give Ireland Back to the Irish. It was a big hit in US and Ireland. Obviously, it's more well known over there, and that's one I haven't heard on the radio ever, really. It's probably more of a European staple. So that's what they started off with. And then they followed up with Hi, 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 which is a big popular song that I do hear on the radio a lot. And by the way, with Wings, I'm going through all their singles, and you'll see why at the end. It will make more sense than kind of running through their albums. And they had a lot of top 40 hits and were very successful on the singles chart. Everybody knew Paul McCartney could be counted on for a great melody, and that really helped them a lot. The next song was a ballad called My Love, and My Love is a beautiful, eternal love song, a romantic song that it can be played at weddings or anything. It's just this beautiful, permanent, evergreen song that is lovely and wonderful and very soft and tender. And McCartney shines on ballads, as we all know from hearing Yesterday from the Beatles. So My Love was a major, major hit for Wings, and this was still only in 72. So they were a really big, popular band right off the bat. Then they had a song called Live and Let Die. So they were commissioned to write a James Bond soundtrack song, a theme song. And that's a very rare opportunity. It's hard to get in the music industry. I'm sure every band in the world would love to record a James Bond theme song. Look at all the promotion you're going to get. And it was a huge, massive success, and the movie propelled it to even bigger heights. So you not only have a hit song, but you have a hit movie riding that train. So Live and Let Die is just a great, fantastic, melodic, bombastic anthem. And it sounds even better live. It's really the centerpiece of a big rock show with Paul McCartney, Live and Let Die. And by then, Wings was a massive band. They were a massive super group. There was no mistaking it at that point. The next single, end of 72, was called Hell on Wheels. I'm not familiar with it, but it was a top 20 record in the US and UK. A lot of hits are forgotten for whatever reason. The DJs tossed them out after their top 40 run. I don't know why, but if you want to dig into his catalog, you can look into Hell on Wheels, and that was a popular record. By 73, he released a song called Jet, and Jet has a fantastic verse, melody, chorus. It's just a great rocker. It sounds really cool on the radio. And years later, there was a tribute album called The Art of McCartney. If you're ever going to get a tribute album, I would get The Art of McCartney. It's all the best musicians in the world singing McCartney songs, and Cheap Trick does a version of Jet. So you might want to check out that album for Cheap Trick's take on it. Later in 73, Band on the Run is released. This is a massively popular song. I can't even tell you how much This was played not only on AM radio, but FM radio too. The rock stations loved it, and the pop stations. Paul was pop and rock. He covered both bases beautifully well and went back and forth. So Band on the Run, massive hit record in 73. I was very young, but I sure remember it. And one little note on Wings tunes. The bass guitar is way up front in a lot of these songs. You're going to hear a very prominent bass guitar. And that's because Paul McCartney was the leader of the band and he played bass, and that's just the way it's going to roll. So listen to those very cool, powerful bass lines that are up front. Okay, next was Junior's Farm. This is a great song. It's a rocker. If you go to the tribute album, The Art of McCartney, Steve Miller Band does Junior's Farm. So it's really awesome. I recommend listening to this song. And like I said, he kind of went back and forth between up-tempo and ballads. And just went back and forth. And 74 was probably my favorite song. It's called Listen to What the Man Said. It's just, I remember going to like summer camp and the beach in the summer, and that would come on the radio. And it was such a light, beautiful, breezy, fun feeling. And I read about the song, and it wasn't quite right when they recorded it. They needed to bring in a musician with like a saxophone or a horn. And he kind of like created a beautiful melody with that horn, and then it made the song into total magic. It's my favorite song by Wings. Listen to What the Man Said. Okay, 75, they have a great hit single called Venus and Mars. And it starts off real soft, and then it builds into a big rocker. It's also called Rock Show. And I think Paul used it to start off his concerts. You can look at some live versions of that online. And on the tribute album, Kiss does a version of Venus and Mars. So check out Kiss, and they're huge rock fans of the Beatles, especially Gene. So they jumped at that chance to do Venus and Mars. It's kind of been forgotten on radio, so I'm here to remind you of these songs. That is my purpose here. 76, Silly Love Songs comes on the radio. That's a fantastic song. Yes, the lyrics are a little silly and goofy, but that's Paul. Paul wears his heart on his sleeve, and he's a true romantic, and that's what this song is about. And it's a beautiful, fun, up-tempo, light song, and I remember hearing it all that summer. It just was really the soundtrack to my summers as I was in Los Angeles, going to summer camp, riding horses, going on sailboats, going to the beach. I had great summers in LA, and this was my soundtrack. It takes me right back to that time. I loved it. The next hit single was called Let 'Em In. It was a song about knocking on the door and letting people in, and kind of British humor, a little eccentric, but I don't think there's ever been a song about knocking on a door, but it's another big popular song for him. That was still in 76. Then they come out with a live album, and sometimes when an artist is massively huge, they can release an older song live, and it becomes this huge hit. And they put out Maybe I'm Amazed, and a live version, and it's really rare for kind of a live version of a song to do well on pop radio, but this is played all the time to this day, all over FM and AM radio. He captured an incredible moment singing Maybe I'm Amazed, and this song will really lift you up to a higher plane. It really will. If you're feeling a little low energy or down, this is a great live version, and I think they were at the peak at this point. They had an album called Wings at the Speed of Sound, and most of my friends and just all the cool people bought that record. That's just where it was at in 76. Then kind of a quirky thing happened. They released a song sung by his wife, Linda McCartney, called Seaside Woman. It was a minor hit, but I remember it being played on the radio that summer. It came out, it was like, who is this? I guess it's Wings, you know. And it was a minor hit, but I'm here to remind you of this buried treasure. Go find it, check it out. Seaside Woman with Linda McCartney. The next single was called Mull of Kintyre. I think that was much more of a European song with the UK and the Irish. I don't know much about that one, but it's dearly beloved, apparently, in Scotland and Ireland and all of that. 77, they had a record called London Town. Great song, With a Little Luck. That was all over the radio in 77. I really remember that strongly. Just a beautiful pop rock hit single all the way. Great melody and lyrics. And beautiful voice. Beautiful, smooth vocals. So With a Little Luck was a huge record for Wings. And they followed it up with I've Had Enough. That was more of a rocker. And it made it, you know, into the top 30. I believe it hit 25. And it was a great song. I love I've Had Enough. That's one of my favorite songs by Wings. A little more of an up-tempo pop rocker. And it did well as on the radio as well. So they had one more hit single called London Town. I'm not familiar with that one. It was a minor hit, a very minor hit. Then in 78 is disco. Everywhere is disco. It's popular. So McCartney and Wings decide to record a disco song called Goodnight Tonight. And it's pretty good, actually. He comes up with a really cool beat and style. And he puts his stamp on disco, which you have to do. And it's just a one-off. He only did one disco single, and it was, well, I mean, the lyrics were no big shakes or anything, but it was a really danceable song. The secret song is on the back, though. It's called Daytime, Nighttime Suffering, and it's an absolutely fantastic song. A lot of people played it because it was on the back of Goodnight Tonight. And I even remember seeing a video on TV somehow made the rounds back then, before MTV. And it was just a well-known song, Daytime, Nighttime Suffering. It's a fantastic, beautiful melody and lyrics. And that is his secret single. I wish he would have held it back for the next album and released it properly. But definitely check that one out. I know you'll enjoy it. If you like McCartney, you will like this song. It should have been. It's one of those that should have been released as a single. It would have been great. So in 79, their last album comes out called Back to the Egg. And Getting Closer was on the radio. That made it to number 20. I remember that being played a lot. That was another, big hit single. He was all over the radio that summer as well. I recall that. And the follow-up was called Arrow Through Me. That was a minor hit. I don't remember that as much. But at the end of 79, he, for whatever reason, decided to wrap things up with Wings. And maybe personnel issues. I know one of his guitarists died in the later 70s. The guitarist for the Maybe I'm Amazed, that guitar solo, that young man did die of a drug overdose. So at the very end of 79, he put out a Christmas single, just alone, a solo single, Paul McCartney, called Wonderful Christmas Time, and it did really well. It did extremely well. It's played to this day, and remember, big bass line. You can hear the bass line right up front. So I think that encouraged him to go ahead and do a solo album, and when 1980 hit, he did indeed release a solo album, and that was pretty much the end of Wings. He said he was going to get them together in the future, but John Lennon died at the end of 80, and I think he reevaluated his whole life, and maybe life is just too short to deal with drama or whatever. When a close friend dies, you reevaluate a lot of priorities, and he just went solo from that point forward. So that's the story of Wings in the 70s. They did release a greatest hits years later called Wingspan. It was really popular because they waited a long time and then had this huge, big, double greatest hits album. So you might want to get Wingspan or that tribute album, The Art of McCartney. And that's the story of Wings and that secret single called Daytime, Nighttime Suffering. Check that out. And I'm Mike D at Down Pepper Tree Lane. Like, subscribe, Patreon. I'm really looking for some patrons to jump forward and spread the love, spread the cash as a donation, and buy something cool at my shop, like jewelry or what have you, a collectible. All right, take care. Bye-bye.